everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 37 of March Comes In Like a Lion. And I'm a little confused because I've pulled up this episode and it shows not the OP, but just these random like red, pink, purple, and blue flowers. So it hasn't looked like any episode of March Comes In Like a Lion that I've seen start this way. So I'm a mite bit confused. But that's okay. So we have started the match of Souya versus Ray, which I'm super excited about. And so far, the two of them have come together and not much has happened, but it's a start, and so here we are. Although Souya is such an interesting character. He's so mysterious. I don't know what to do with him. I can't decide if he's deaf or blind or whatever, or just a high-functioning savant. I don't know. So we're going to hopefully find out this episode a little bit more about Souya, at least with his playstyle, because we've only seen certain moments between him and Shimada and him and Goto and things like that. So did he face Goto? I think Goto wanted to face him, but definitely him and Shimada. So I'm super excited. I don't know. Well, no, it wasn't Goto. It was the other guy that faced Souya, and then he lost too. So there we go. But I'm really excited. I don't know what these last several episodes of season 2 are going to give us, but I'm excited to see where they go. And I'm excited to see where this opening takes us as well. So anyway, before we get started, I want to give a major shout out, not only to those on YouTube that subscribe and follow to me, but also to those on Patreon. Thank you so much for your kindness, for your support. But as per usual, every week, I give a shout out to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon, who donate a little extra each month to help the channel out. So thank you so much to Alex Cornejo, Anime Annie, Be Happy, Bryant Reed, BBT, as well as Dana, Danger Zone, Damage3245, Danny Don Mai, Devorin, Destiny Marie, Eric Ichu, Fisho, Ghostly Turnip, El Freya, Liam Poles, Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Nicholas, Nameless Monster, Alexandra Q, Moroni W, as well as Shimayama, Sunspots, Trails, Translucent Men. I appreciate all of y'all's support so much. I really appreciate it. All of my love. There we go. So yeah, I feel all sporty today in my Ms. B shirt. I'm ready to get down and watch some March Comes In Like a Lion. So yeah. But we're not going to waste any more time, y'all. We are going to start episode 37. And hopefully my dogs will be kind. But we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, it just starts the White Storm. No OP or anything. Oh, that's all. Totally fine. Totally normal. I love the white coloring. It's so good. He looks so young there. Is this when he was younger? Huckleberry be nice. Oh. Oh, like a crane. Haven't we seen like white feathers representing Souya in the past? Yeah, there we go. Shimada was describing him. Oh, well, his suit got wine all over it. Oh. I just happen to have some extra kimonos. Oh, well, isn't that something? I mean, it looks perfect on him. I just thought he brought it with him. Oh. Since he wore it. Oh, but is he seeing him like in person? Yeah. So quiet. I love that Ray sees him as a person. Yeah. Not as a monster or a god, but as a person. Yeah. Exactly. And the fan. Wow, yeah. Mm. Yeah, oh my god. You gotta give it your all. Oh! Damn, okay, there's the OP. I was like, ooh! So, someone pointed out something really cool about the game with Rei versus Yamazaki. I can't exactly remember whose comment was, but they were pointing out that the move Nikaido usually plays with the rook as his main piece, and Rei was about to do a move during the game that was going to use the rook, and it was going to be kind of like a revenge move, like, oh, I'll avenge you, Nikaido, by using this piece and doing this move. And that's when Nikaido appeared in his mind, like, hey, get your head out of your ass. Don't just get revenge on me playing the game. And it brought Rei back and allowed him to beat Yamazaki. So I'm glad that that happened during that match. So it gave Rei a little bit more focus. So going into this match, he's like, you got to give it your all, but you can't be distracted by anything like that. I feel like in this match, Rei could channel Nikaido and channel Shimada and channel like all the other shogi players he's faced to go up against Souya. So it's not like, it's the anime thing where it's like, I'm not only fighting you, but all these people behind me, and it's like all the spirits and everything of shogi players that Rei has taken with him. So I don't know. I definitely am excited to see how Souya responds and faces Rei too. Like, there's so much mystery. I want to know. But we're gonna find out, so it's fine. Oh. Like a fortress to be defensive? Maybe. Ho, ho, ho. What are you going to do? How do you handle this? Oh. Okay. Oh. Ha. Huh. Yeah, so Rei's the first one since Souya, which is crazy. Don't jinx him! Yeah! Yeah! Quit jinxing him! Stop it! Aw, this guy with the chairman. I like his design. It's so cool. Ooh. Ooh. Was that like a sign you should not have done that? Oh, no. He's realized. Oh. Oh, shit. Was that pawn to 8-6? Oh, this music. I wonder if you can leave to go to the bathroom in the middle of a game. Like, y'all are draining all these bottles. Can you get up and go to the bathroom? I guess do you just clock out a break? So did he get to do the... Oh. Oh, I like that they're both like, would you do the same? Yes. Ooh. Oh, I love that expression. Oh. Oh. Yeah. I just love the kimono makes him look so elegant. Hmm. Oh, he's a ninth Dan. That's right. Ooh. Oh. That's very. Oh. Mmm. He's so practical, but interestingly so. I don't know. I still feel like Souya might have the upper hand. Oh, wow. Oh. Oh, I love it. I love these two finding like each other as rivals. Love it. Damn, this White Storm chapter is. Oh, that's so crazy. Oh. Oh. What did? How far can I go? Yeah, he's like, I screwed myself over, but am I just going to give up or just keep fighting the hardest I can? Uh-huh. Oh my gosh, he's still going to school? Oh, wow. I still wonder if he's deaf because he didn't even greet him. Yeah, no, not really. No, he's pretty quiet and aloof. But he's always alone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You should go say hi to him. Did you lose? Yeah. Okay, so you lost the first game. Wow. Wow, yeah, no. He's like, oh, wow. Wow. But you, well, catching up. Yeah, how do you close that gap? Because that's a good point. Hmm. Oh, well. Oh, wow. And the train. I love the train zapping. Maybe it's not like that. Uh-huh. Yeah. Where I drew a blank. We were alone in a pure white space. Yeah. Oh, wow. He's like, I like playing against you. Yeah, how did that go? Oh. Oh. Which is what he should have done. Like, they're just doing all this without even speaking to each other. Wow. Yes. Oh, and they didn't even talk. That just confirms it even more. Oh. That's what it's like. Oh. Mmm. This kind of world exists. Oh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Ah! Oh. Did Souya hear him? Is he deaf and can't hear him? Oh. Bitch, you're gonna make him touch him. Oh. Is he looking at his lips? He looks so young there. He looks so innocent. No, yeah. Oh. Uh-huh. Yeah, he's deaf, isn't he? Yes. Oh. Oh my gosh! Oh! Oh! I'm so glad they confirmed it! Wow. Oh. 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 Uh-huh. I love Ray is like taking this on himself. Oh. I just to point to it to know. Oh, I love it. Oh, wow. There's so much to talk about, but damn, that sucks. Oh. 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 Oh my gosh, I love every bit of this. Them being friends. Oh, mother. Oh. Yeah. You're like, yeah, just, we're going to talk about this, but this is, sure, we'll blame it on the typhoon. Oh my God. Oh. 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 You're not going to follow that beautiful little Great Pyrenees? Go. I'm obsessed with the review game and it's still on my mind, but oh, they're so similar. Yeah, no, fair. Yeah, that's not a lot. Oh, I just love they do it in silence. They just walk in there in silence, the two of them, these two monsters of shogi. Oh, I love that shot. That's so good. Who knew this episode was gonna be like, the start of this match would be so tranquil? Maybe he stayed at this hotel before and that's why he knew. Oh my god, how is he at the end of the episode? How? How? Ah! I can't believe, I guess, I don't think there's any extra credit scenes. Ah! Oh my god. I am obsessed with Souya. I love him. So he's deaf. That's we'll talk about in the discussion, but I'm so glad they finally confirmed it. They're like, yes. Oh. Oh. That explains so much. And it just connects so many dots together, but I wonder if he's in kimonos for a lot of his matches because he spilled something on them from the prior day before, like in this case. Like when he faced Shimada, well, they both were in kimonos, so there was a reason for that. But oh, I love all this. Oh, man. Oh. Oh, there is an extra credit scene. Yes. Because he can probably feel, or when he sees, is quietly following me. Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. Oh. 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 No big deal. No big deal. Just the first match is already over. Oh, don't mind me. Oh my gosh, I wanted to talk so much throughout this episode. I wanted to just start talking about things, but then I was like, no, because things were happening and I didn't want to miss it. And you just get so caught up in the ambiance of the entire episode. You get caught up in the tranquility, in the score, in the animation. Shaft is just so good. So good. I had somebody say in the comments, they were like, well, they're probably not going to get to season 3 for a while because they have a whole plate of projects. You know what? I know. I'm being cautiously optimistic that they'll get to season 3, but I think one day they might. Who knows? How many shows have we seen the last year that have just randomly had a new season pop up after 8 years or 10 years? And you're like, oh, okay. So yeah, I have faith that Shaft will get to it because I think that they have faith in the project. It's just going to take time. That's the hardest thing. Anime fans are either one of two things. They are either the most impatient people on earth and they expect it to just be handed to them immediately, or they are the most patient people under the sun and they will wait with trepidation and be cautiously just standing on the edge waiting for it for decades. Like, it is truly a test of time. But I think that the animation that Shaft does for this series and the quality it produces is worth the wait. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine. That's, again, I'm not reading the manga once I'm caught up because it's just too good animated. I will gladly wait and take my time to see that 3rd season. And I hope that they create it because this is just, it's just so magical. I love this show so much. Anyway, let's dive into this episode because there's a bit to talk about. I like that this episode is basically just a continuation of the arc White Storm, which is basically referring to Souya and Rei and their journey as competitors in this match and everything. But I love it. I will make note, there in this opening moment here, I wanted to go back and catch that because it almost felt like Rei, he looks so much younger in that moment of him in, like, it shows him in his room, right? And this is back when he's living with Koda and them. So it felt like when he was younger and there was snow on the ground. So that's what it felt like. It was just tying back. And then he says, I suddenly remembered. Yeah. And then it shows like the day out in the, he's like, yeah. I love that it's tying Rei and like snow on a winter's morning with the match with Souya, comparing Souya to A Winter's Day, right? And then but then he talks about when he was a kid, he looked out the window and there was a big white crane that, it's not snow, it was a big white crane that had wandered around and then it spread its wings and flew up into the air, which is what Shimada talked about in a previous episode, where when he was facing Souya, he described it as like seeing a bird flying away. And Souya is this it's so fascinating because I have to gather my thoughts for this. It's so fascinating. I didn't bring Whiteboard Kun out. I'm regretting these decisions. It's so interesting because Souya is deaf. We believe he is deaf, or he has had hearing loss. He can no longer hear. We're going to talk about that when we get to the whole train scene and everything like that, but we're not ready for that yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. But it's so interesting because Souya, in some ways, through his disability, has gained this sense of freedom in some sense, because he's not, I love that Shimada describes him as the bird because he's able to soar and climb to new heights, and Shimada often feels very chained to the ground and like he's running in circles, right? That's the whole metaphor of him on the bus that keeps going around in circles and he can't get off of it, whereas Soya's flying away as the bird, right? That kind of metaphor and what that symbolizes. And then you look at Souya, who's able to like get through a bunch of distractions, but then you find out he can't hear. So that adds another layer to it. And it's just everything surrounding Souya. He's so mysterious. He's so adorable. And he's so terrifying. He's just so complex. And I love it. I love him as an antagonist, right? I wouldn't call him a villain because he's not really. But Ray seeing the crane outside his window and being transfixed by it, and then here's Souya, who shows up just ready to play shogi, and everybody's like, look at him wearing traditional Japanese garb. And what's so interesting is that Souya, he can't hear what everyone's saying about him. So all of the gossip and everything, and all the people are whispering and saying, he doesn't know what they're saying. He doesn't care. And so it's kind of like, he just shrugs it off. He's like, okay, whatever. And they're like, I thought it was normal for both players to wear suits for commemorative matches. Souya don't give a fuck. So, and then they're like, so Tono shows up, who has all these kimonos. He collects kimonos as a hobby. He gives one to Souya. And of course the chairman knows him because the chairman's a shogi master. He's in charge of the whole organization. Tono's the ninth dan. So he's like, oh, hey, you got a kimono? Can you do a man a solid and give my boy Souya here a kimono? And he's like, well, sure, he is a shogi master. Why wouldn't I? But I really like Tono's design. I love his blue eyes. I love he kind of has like this, he looks like a waterbender. I love his design. Looks great. He's like, and I'm honored Souya's wearing one of them. I'll never wash it again. And it'll be a family heirloom. Which, there's a part of me that feels sad for Souya in this episode. Not for him and Ray's interactions. We'll talk about that. That was such a highlight. But everyone else, other than Ray, kind of, and maybe the chairman, I think other than the chairman and Ray, and maybe Shimada, those three in general, everyone else kind of, but even Shimada kind of idolizes him too, in a sense. But besides the chairman and Ray, everyone else kind of puts him on a pedestal, or they view him as a god or a demon or anything but human. They don't view him as someone that's just like any of us, right? And they kind of they other him in a lot of ways. And his deafness, I think, only adds to that because, one, I don't think a lot of people know that he's deaf. That I don't think they get that. And here's the thing, we might as well talk about it. We might as well talk about it now. Is it confirmed that he's deaf? No. Does it make 100% that he's deaf? Yes. I have a friend, and here's the thing. I have a really, really close friend that I've known since college, and she has intermittent hearing loss. She's my age. I mean, she's 36. So it can happen, and she's had this happen to her since she was like 30. So it has been something that's been ongoing since she was younger. She's always had hearing problems. She's always worn like an aid, and now that she's older, it's a more obvious aid. And she has always had hearing issues. Like you have to, like if you're just having a conversation and she's not zoning in, or if you don't get right up to her, she cannot hear you. And so she's always had those issues. And it's one of those things where she can read lips. she knows you're talking to her. She can hear what you're saying, and she can look at your lips and tell what you're saying. So you don't have to use sign language or anything like that. She understands. She's had hearing before, so she knows what it's like, and she knows what you're doing. And if you get up close to her and talk to her like really close, she can hear you. But she sometimes can, if she's not paying attention, she might get distracted and not understand where she is at the moment. And that makes so much sense for Souya. That's why he can talk to Shimada at that one thing and say something to him. And Shimada's like, oh, yeah, right. And Shimada is not really a chatter, so it probably works out fine for them. But then it also explains why he's able to answer the interview questions. But if he doesn't hear the question correctly, or he doesn't read the lips correctly, he may answer it a certain way that doesn't make sense, which is exactly what he does in the last episode. So it all makes sense. Like the intermittent hearing loss, that all makes sense. And I'm like, oh, okay. So who knows? He might have been, you know, for my friend that I grew up with and went to school with, she, you know, has had a hearing loss that started when she was a kid, and it's just slowly progressed. And it's just a bodily function, and there's no accident involved or anything like that. She was just born with this condition that just causes intermittent hearing loss. And so that could very well be the case with Souya. I doubt that he was in an accident or anything like that. I feel like maybe he just has that, and that's how it is. That's just, it's genetic, and that's how it goes. But it gives him such a benefit because with the hearing loss, I mean, look back on the guy that Ray faced a few episodes prior that did like the scratching and the tapping and like the like makes all the noise while he's competing, and Ray was like, I'm super annoyed by this. Souya wouldn't have cared. Tone it out, tune it out, zone out. And then like just the idea of all of these distractions that can make you anxious or nervous in the moment, Souya can just tune it out. And that's so fascinating to me, that he's allowed to tune it out. But it's so complex and symbolic because it also isolates him, where he doesn't quite feel what I'm so impressed by with Souya, and what kind of tugs at my heartstrings with his character, is how at ease he is about it all, and how comfortable he is about it all, that it doesn't bother him. Like the fact that he can't hear things. There's the moment on the train, and we'll talk about that when we get back to it. But for the most part, Souya just kind of like goes to the flow, and he's like, okay, like just, that's fine. And he's so mysterious, and we can't quite get a read on him, but we'll talk about him. But I am obsessed with Souya. He's so fascinating. And then Ray facing him is like, he was supposed to be this character in a book, but here he is in flesh and blood right in front of me, and I'm actually facing him. He's human, right? He's breathing and moving, and he's going to play against me. And he's like, I have to concentrate. I don't want this match to be over as soon as it ends. And he's like, I know the gap in our abilities, but if I jump into this without the intention of winning, my head will be blown off in an instant. I love that. I love that Ray went in being like, look, he's a shogi master. I'm not going to beat him right off the bat. I'm not arrogant enough to think that. But I'm going to go in and do my best and give it a solid effort. And if I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. I mean, there aren't any real stakes with this match like there was with the newcomer battle. I mean, there's not really any stakes. They're doing this all for publicity. So it's kind of just like, it's a way for Ray to meet the person he's going to have to eventually beat, and to get to face him one-on-one, which is really, really cool, right? But I feel like for Ray, he's met someone that is not only someone that he could eventually match, but someone he could really enjoy playing. And they could find this kind of zen between the two of them, which we'll talk about. And that's kind of the coolest thing. I also like that this first match is them getting to know each other, and they build up defensive positions and strategies around each other's play to try to like feel each other out and see how each other are as players, because you can look at game records all day long, but when you actually get to playing one another, it's a whole different story. And everything about this episode, it was so tranquil. Everything was crisp. All of like the green colors and the whites for the snow. It was lush. It was refreshing. It felt like snow on a winter morning. It was so good. And then I like that they basically say that one of Soya's moves is a question. He makes this little threatening move to be like, hello, who are you? What are you going to do? How are you going to answer to this? And then, like Ray says, it's a threat to test him to see how it is. They make it sound so timid, but Ray's like, no, this is a threat. He is literally seeing, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? And he goes through all of his options. He's like, it's very straightforward. He's not trying to be sneaky. And he's like, okay, so here's what we do. And then Soya doesn't seem to be he's just like, oh, okay. Like his expression has very much a as expected kind of fight to it. They definitely are like kind of making Ray the for sure underdog, which he is. But they very much are like, they have Soya so high on this pedestal that they're just like, man, Ray's keeping up. He's doing the best he can, even though, and I think it's interesting because they've talked about in this series, Soya loses 30% of the time. You can beat him. He's not a god. He's not going to win every single time, but he has such a calm presence about him and so much power and intent behind his moves that he just kind of gives this air of infallible, this infallible nature around him. And then this one guy, he jinxes the whole damn match. He's like, oh, it looks like Kuriyama has the upper hand. And they're like, well, haven't you ever watched any sports anime before, sir? They're like, if you've watched any kind of sports anime, you know that, the person that's doing real good in the middle of the match is probably going to lose. And I'm like, thank you. What I thought was interesting about this episode was they don't make a big fanfare about Ray losing this first match. You don't even know Ray loses until after the match is over and they're at the train station. So it just kind of like comes out of nowhere and you're like, oh, we're already done. Oh, okay. But yeah, I like the chairman and Tono. They're having their coffee over here watching the match. And they're like, that child has something going. He's able to keep up. And then he says pawn to 7-5. And I love that the moment he says pawn to 7-4, the moment he makes that move, there's that little twitch of the light. And that's the moment he's like, shit, I made a bad move. That's the move that cost me the game. Right there and then. Right there and then. If you do any type of competition, any competitive sport, especially one that is maybe more mentally challenging, like shogi, or even I would say competitive speech, sometimes there are moments where you do something and you instantly know that was a mistake and I shouldn't have done that. And you can either do one of two things. You can either be very upset about it and you can let that negativity make you give up, or you can power through and just hope for the best and try to fight it out the best you can. And I know that when I like to go and do some livestock judging here and there because it sounds weird. It's kind of like if you ever watch the Westminster Dog Show, people judge dogs there in the show. I've done that with livestock for several years. And you rank classes and you have to pick first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And sometimes when you place a class, you immediately like put something third and something fourth. And then you realize, I should have switched that. And then you have to justify it. So you just have to roll along with it. And you've laid your bed. Now you got to lie in it. And so I understand that feeling of Ray being like, shit, I messed up. And that's the moment where you knew he's like, I should not have done that. And he's like, what the hell am I doing? And I like Ray kind of in the moment realizing, what am I doing? And he's like, there was another move I could have done right there. And it almost seems like Soya, I feel like Soya let him go, but he like let him go in that moment and is like, let's keep playing. Or he did the pawn to 8-6 and he knew that was the moment. He's like, I'm going to lose now, but I'm going to drink my water bottle. I'm going to keep playing and we're going to go to the bitter end. And I like that it seems like in this match, Ray makes Soya kind of just contemplate for a minute and be like, okay. I feel like Soya knew that Ray knew that he messed up. And he's like, well, let's keep going. And just kept playing the game. But they do so in silence and it's so calm. And it's so just tranquil throughout all of this. And they're like, I like that Tono describes Rei as being very practical, but interestingly so. He makes intriguing moves, even if they seem very straightforward. They're still done with so much intent. And I like that him and the chairman are describing, like, what would they do in that situation? Which move would they meet? And, like, Rei saves himself from getting even deeper in the hole by making this one move. And Souya kind of, like, just inclines his head like, yes, that was the right choice. Okay. And instead of just being, like, a match where it's so emotionally charged, Shogi becomes not this inflaming battle of war, but just this strategic matching of minds. Instead of it being just like this fiery, furious rampage, instead Rei and Souya kind of engage in this battle of wits, and it becomes something much more peaceful and much more enjoyable and exciting, and they're able to kind of like see each other on the same level, and I love it. And I love it so much. But yes, the chairman's like, that's what makes Rei interesting. I think it's also fascinating, too, that Rei is the first middle schooler to become a professional player since Souya. So they're like, you know, the next gen in line. And he's like, after that, I was so absorbed in the game. And the sound of each piece on the board was like a flash in my mind. I was connecting it all together. It was like just like a trail of dominoes. And I love that, you know, normally when Rei's thinking about being in a match and things aren't going his way and he's going to lose, you see like him drowning, or it's represented by like dark, murky water, like with Godo, or it's just like something that he's submerged in. Here, the water motif is still around, but it's so much more tranquil. It's so much more peaceful than normal. And I thought that was so interesting. I loved that, actually. I thought that was so neat. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, so he's like, I knew the moment I did that one move that it was over. He's like, it felt like the surface of my fingers were being ripped off. And it was like, ah. He's like, the moment I took my hand away, it was the move that would cost me the game. And I knew it was over. Which is so interesting because, you know, normally he would have panicked. Like in episodes prior, he would have been like freaking out and like there had been all this crazy animation going on. But here it was like, nope. He was like, shit, I knew it. He's like, but at the same time, it crossed my mind that he was like, I'm just going to have to keep going. He's like, if I only played the best moves from this point on, then how far could I go in the match? So I love it. He's like, I'm not going to hand in the towel. I'm not going to throw it in. I'm not going to say I'm done. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep trying because what else can I do? This is the best I can do right now. So we're just going to make it work. And it's like, oh, I love it. Mm-hmm. He's just like, okay, the wind is strong. I thought the typhoon was just going to pass through the Pacific. And then he sees Souya at the train track. So the typhoon's coming through, and he talks about Souya. He's like, I never really see him interacting with other people. Well, it would probably be a lot of work if you can't hear to interact with people all the time. And plus, I feel like some people are too afraid of him because they don't want to interact with him because they think he's like this god. So while they were on the train station at the little lane waiting to get on the train, I was really hoping that Rei would talk to Souya because I was like, you both are kind of similar. I mean, you both are very quiet. You're kind of introverted, but you've got a lot of passion and emotion underneath. Although I think Rei is way more emotional than Souya, to be honest. But I'm like, you both have so much in common with kind of like how you are with Shogi. Then I'm like, maybe you could talk. But he's just like, you know, everybody seems to just put him on a pedestal. Nobody seems to want to talk to him. And then it shows him like walking through the snow. That was the memory I was thinking of. I was thinking of racing him in the snow going into the building. And he's like, I don't ever see him laughing or talking with anyone either. He's just always alone. And he's like, it's kind of strange. And he's just sitting there. I fought with this person yesterday and I lost to him I fought him and I lost. And he's like, I should feel really sad about it. He's like, I'm not tired. I'm not depressed. And I'm like, this is growth for you, Ray. You're not tired and depressed after a match. Growth. I also think it makes a difference that there weren't any stakes for this match. So like if it had been a title match or something, I think there would have been a different vibe. But he's like, I knew I had no chance of winning going into it, but I hadn't intended to give up. So I'm like, are they going to face each other again a second day? I thought these matches were like best out of 3 or something like that. I don't know. He's like, but in experience and studying, he was years ahead of me and I wasn't catching up. That part was interesting to me because I immediately wanted to blurt out in the reaction. I'm like, oh, you can catch up. But I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like Souya keeps moving and you keep moving, but you're both moving simultaneously. Can Ray ever catch up? Well, the only way he can catch up is if Souya slows down. That's really the only way. And I think the thing about it is, as time goes on, these shogi masters eventually do slip. Like you can't, Souya may win 70% of the time. There's going to be a 1 in set, there's going to be a 3 in 10, there's going to be a 3 in 10 chance that you're going to win. So it's only a matter of time till you draw that moment where you win, right? And he's like, I have no clue how to close that gap. And that's what he's got to figure out. He's got to figure out how do I get to that level where I can beat Souya? And he's like, I've always thought that after a loss, feeling refreshed or having enjoyed the game was a major insult to your opponent. And I don't know. That's an interesting way to view it. I guess I can see that in a sense because your opponent, if it was a good match, you want to both be wore out and like panting and sweating and being like, oh man, neither of us can go on. Like, I think of Dragon Ball Z, oddly enough, where like the end of the match, you want to see Goku and Vegeta on the ground, like sweating, clothes ripped, like just like out of breath, like they've been battling to the ends of the earth. And they're like, oh, we're still going, but we're both so wore out. I feel like it would be an insult for like you to have this giant match and then Goku being like, oh, Vegeta, you beat me. Guess we'll just try next time. And Vegeta would be like, what the fudge? So I could see that. I could see where Ray's coming from in terms of that. But he says it's like putting your opponent on a pedestal, showing reverence and feeling refreshed without telling the person. It was like not thinking of your opponent as a person. Yeah. So, and then we had the spark from the train jumping the tracks. So yeah, he's like, it's one of those things like if you don't get down on their level and you just kind of treat them like a god, then it's like, what does that do in that moment? What I love the most, he says, what I've always thought, but how does that account for yesterday's match? I think my favorite scene is the review in this. And he says, well, whenever I'm up against other professionals, no matter what the gap, I can always trace their line of thinking to some extent. He's like, I can always kind of figure out what their goal is. Like, what are they trying to do? Who are they as a player? But with Souya, he's the only one where everything's a blank. Because he doesn't talk. He doesn't give anything away. He doesn't Nikaido, he'll give you his intent line of thinking within 2 seconds of meeting him. And so will most of the other people that he faces. But with Souya, he's so mysterious. And he's like, when we played each other, it felt like the two of us were alone in a pure white space. And it was very comfortable. I love it. It's so good. And so then, my favorite scene, they talk about the post-game, where they're like the review session with Kiriyama and Souya. They're like, I've never seen anything like it. Neither said one word and just kept going. And after the game was over and the review session began, Kiriyama lined up all the pieces silently and with determination. Because Soya's deaf, it's like he didn't have to ask Ray to do it. Ray just instantly was like, okay, review session, let's go. And here's the thing. Ray is a caretaker. He likes, as we've seen, like what I love about this scene too, is it shows that growth of Ray from this last arc with Hina, where we've come to acknowledge through his experiences with Hina and Akari that Ray likes to take care of people. He likes to help people. He likes to be depended upon. Well, hell, Soya's perfect because Soya needs help sometimes. Like, not during the shogi match, but outside of it, Soya actually kind of does need help sometimes. So that's perfect for Rei. So in this moment here, Soya doesn't even ask for help. Soya doesn't even offer to do the review. Rei just automatically starts it. And I wonder if Shimada knew. I don't think he did because he didn't mention it, but maybe Shimada kind of guessed it because he kind of does the same, but he just gets the board ready, and then without saying a word, they just go through the motions. And when he gets to the one move, he changes it to show like another option that he could have done, looks over at Soya being like, could I have done this instead? And Soya's like, yeah, that would have worked. And like without even saying a word. It's so perfect. And they're like, yep, that was confirming that one move was the one he lost the game. And Soya's like, yeah, you could have totally did that other move and it probably would have worked. Probably wouldn't have been the end of the thing. And then Rei's like, after the review session was over, Rei is like, he glances at his fingers from where he's holding the piece. That's all he did. And then Soya sees it. And Soya says, that's what it's like. And I'm like, what did Soya mean by that? Like Soya did, like, Rei didn't say anything to do it, but Soya saw the gesture of the hand moving and was like, yes, that's what it's like. Like to answer a question that Rei had been asking himself telepathically, you know? And so Rei, I love Rei having the blush where Rei's like, I was startled then. Because in his head, he's like, I thought maybe I blurted out what I was thinking. But it got through to him without words. I thought this kind of world exists. A quiet, bright place where there was nothing to be afraid of. Yes. And then he says there, what does he say right after that? Yeah, and that's all that we said. That's all he says. But yeah, that's it. Like, Soya's like, that's what it's like. He's like, this is what we could do. And I feel like Soya has wanted to find someone who sees the same thing he does. And Rei's right up there. I feel like when Shimada was facing Soya, Soya was like, I wish this could have kept going so we could have been in this world together. Just the two of us playing this game and having this battle of wits and it just being so perfect. And now he's had that moment with Rei. And I think Rei's going to get addicted to it. He's like, I want to play Soya because I want to go back to that world where it's just so tranquil. Okay, but the lines get suspended because of the typhoon. Everybody rushes out, but because Rei is, takes his time, he's going out last on the train, and then he sees Soya, and his glasses are off on there, and he's just sitting there asleep. And again, he says his name and kind of whispers it, but he doesn't answer. And what gets me is that if you are someone with hearing loss, then your other senses are kind of heightened. And from my friend, I know that if you go to touch her and she wasn't expecting it, she'll be like, oh, hey, because you can't, because you can't, your senses are all connected. So, if you smell something, you normally like look and try to see, okay, where, even though you can smell it, you're like, okay, where is the smell coming from? Where is this going to go? And your eyes connect with your nose, right? And then all of your senses connect. So if you can see, then your hearing connects to your seeing, gets you to do this. But in Soya's case, because he can't see and because he's asleep, his eyes are closed, his sensories are kind of, limited in this moment. But when he goes to touch him and he barely like taps him and says, excuse me, I love that Soya just like flinches like, oh, hey now, who are you? And in that moment, he looks so vulnerable. Like his eyes kind of bags under him where he's been asleep. He looks vulnerable in that moment and doesn't know what's happening. And then he looks at Rei like, what are you doing? Why did you wake me up? And Rei, of course, is blushing like, hey. And Rei and Soya look very similar, but Soya's hair is so neat and Rei's hair is so shaggy. And Soya's just like, what are you doing? And Rei's like, no. He's like, sorry, but he's like, the train has stopped running. And you can see, like, when Soya's looking up at him, it's like Soya's reading his lips, like, what's happening? And he's like, the train has stopped running, so we've got to go. And it almost seems like he looks so innocent there. He's so cute and innocent, Souya is, right there. He's the little precious bean. And I want to grab his hand and help him across the train station because he's so damn precious. I'm like, that's the cutest Shaft. Why'd you make him so cute? He's the cutest little shogi demon ever. And he's like, he looks outside like, oh. And then it's like you can see the puzzle pieces fitting together in Souya's mind. He looks outside and goes, oh, the typhoon. The train stopped running because of the storm. Okay. I mean, Souya's an adult. He's smart. He can put 2 and 2 together. It's just because he's probably not used to talking because he can't hear, he doesn't feel the need to vocalize it. He's like, oh. And he's like, okay. And Ray's like, Mr. Souya, you want to go? And then he looks around and sees everybody's off the train. And he didn't hear him leave because he was asleep. And he's like, the train's suspended for the day. That's what they announced. And Ray's been trying to tell him, but he's not looking. He's like, we'll need to get a refund for our tickets. And then that's when he's like, I wasn't getting through to him. But he wasn't looking at Ray to see him speak, so he didn't know what he was saying, and he wasn't connecting. He's like, we should get a room for the night. And then all the pieces fell into place. He's like, and that's when Ray like grabs him like, hey, I didn't think I could leave him on his own, so I reached out my hand. It wasn't the sound that seemed to fade around him. It was that sound didn't exist for him. Yeah. He's like, okay. And he's like, why? Since when? I like that Ray's asking those questions because we would ask those questions too in that moment. But what I like about the show is that's not the point. We don't know when Souya's potentially lost his hearing. We don't know why, if he was born that way, if something happened. We have no clue. It's not really our business to know. But the point is, he can't hear. And so that all explains like the chairman helping him out so much and the chairman being loud and being in his face and being like, hey, Souya, like trying to get his attention. Like that all makes sense now because the chairman's trying to help him and he knows he's deaf. But something else that's really neat is we don't know how many people know that Souya is deaf. For all we know, no one knows, except I'm sure the chairman does. I'm sure the chairman knows, and I'm sure that Ray now knows. So as far as if Shimada or anybody else knows, we're not privy to that. But the thing is, everyone views him as this shogi demon or the shogi god. So whether they think he's deaf or just kind of a savant or just whatever, it doesn't matter. He's the shogi master. So it's like all that other stuff kind of goes aside. But I love Ray helping him. Like Ray wants to be a caretaker and be dependent upon. And this is the perfect chance for that. He's like, I don't know, but nothing reaches his ears anymore. Oh, I feel like maybe it happened. I feel like the hearing loss probably just got worse as he got older because he seems to know how different things work in a way that I feel like if you were deaf, you may not understand. And plus, because he's never used sign language in any of the scenes we've seen him in with anyone, if you were born deaf and had never heard someone talk and didn't know how to read what the words meant, then you probably would need to use sign language to communicate. But since he can read lips, it sounds to me, no pun intended, like he originally did know the words. Was able to, and he could speak fine. Because usually, typically, if you're deaf, you do have kind of maybe a deficit in your vocal patterns because you've never heard that sound before to know what it's supposed to sound like. So he seems perfectly fine in that aspect. So my theory is he just has very terrible intermittent hearing loss and it's just gotten worse as he's gotten older. So, which is very, very possible. But yeah, I love that he's just standing there and Ray's like, okay, what do we do? And then he's like, well, do we get in line? What do we do? And I like that Souya doesn't tell him what to do, but Souya kind of like makes some gestures. Like he looks over at the one place where you can exchange the ticket being like, we could go over there. And Ray's like, oh, we could. Yeah. And so they go do that. And then he's like, well, I don't know where to find a hotel at. And then Soya's like, well, I've stayed there before. And Ray's like, okay, let's try that. So Soya, he doesn't try to like shove Ray away. He accepts his help. But then he also is like, I'm not a completely defenseless person. I can manage some things. I just need some assistance because I can get from point A to point B. I just have a disability that prevents me from fully being able to do this one specific task. And I love that because, my best friend has a physical disability, but it doesn't stop her from being able to do things. You just have to be adaptable. And if you're not able-bodied in a situation, you just have to find a way to adapt to fit whatever you need to do for that scenario. And it seems like Soya is, for the most part, capable of doing that. The chairman probably just helps him wherever he can. So yeah, and I like that there's just Soya just looking around, like pointing to the other places to find the map and everything. And plus, here's the thing, Soya doesn't know Ray that well. He's probably very grateful that Ray is trying to help him, but Soya doesn't know Ray, so he's not going to tell Ray what to do or order him around because he's like, well, what right do I have to do that? I don't know who you are. I can't read your personality. But they end up going and finding this hotel. Ray gets him an umbrella, which is super sweet. And then they just walk together and then walk out in the rain. And that's it, just side by side. I love it. I love that Soya's like, are we gonna go? Let's go. And they stop at the convenience store, and Ray gets I want to see what each of them got. He's like, well, I wanted to stock up. It looks like Soya just gets a bottle of water, some cookies, a Snickers bar, and some apples. Like the bare minimum. Not even worried about it. He's like, it's fine. Whereas he's like, well, that doesn't seem right. Whereas Ray gets a packed egg sandwich, a katsu sandwich, inari sushi, a milk cream bread, fluffy melon bread. He gets all this food, everything. And he's like, I feel gluttonous in this moment. But yeah, they just carry this about in the rain. And I love that Ray, like the shot of Ray looking back at him in the rain and Soya moving forward. I live for that shot. That animation is so freaking good. But it's just Soya's not bothered. He's like, okay, I'll just keep going. I love the concept and the symbolism of Soya not being afraid of the storm. Because why should he be? This whole series, we've talked about Ray being afraid of the storm. He's been afraid of moving from one island to the next because the storm in the ocean has been too great and it's too complicated. It's too complicated, too complex, and he could stall out in an island or he could move forward, but he's afraid to move forward. And so it's just been this constant struggle of him to fight the storm to advance to the next stage. And then you see him walking alongside, side by side with Soya, who's not afraid of the storm. And it's like, and I just love the fact that they had this match today and Ray lost. Back in season 1, Ray would have been devastated. He would have been like in a doom and gloom pit at the bottom of the ocean for episodes. But no, here it's just like he's so enthralled with the idea of being in the same world as Soya and helping him that he doesn't even think about it. I'm like, yes, it's so damn good. So they get to the hotel and that's the end of the episode. And he talks about, when I go, he goes. When I stop, he stops. And it's just the two of them walking. It feels like a god is quietly following me. And I'm sure Soya's like, why are you stopping and staring at me? I'm sure Soya's like, is something wrong? I just love that Ray and Soya are friends. This makes my heart so full. And Soya's absolutely adorable. So yes, please. I loved every moment of this. But what's new with March Comes In Like a Lion? Anyway, so the end card for this week is very nicely drawn. It's Soya in all white, pure white like snow. Looks great. It's by Atsushi Kamijo, which I have recognized his work before. His assistants include, his past assistants include Makoto Ito and Katsutoshi Kawai. He's a manga artist that has been known. His debut manga was Mob Hunter in 1983. The manga of his that shows up the most is called Sex. But sure, of course, why not? Very distinct style, which the in card of Souya's matches a lot. Is it weird that I think this looks a little bit like Yagami? Is that weird? Does it look weird that it looks kind of like if like Yagami just wore some glasses for a while? Does that anybody else seeing that? Maybe it's just me. They definitely, it looks more Bishonen for Rei or for Souya, I mean. But yeah, damn. What a great episode. I felt like I was all over the place in that discussion, but this episode just my mind was so bamboozled and connecting all the dots, but then there's all the symbolism and all the things just coming together in this episode and everything's starting to come full circle and it's just it has me in a tizzy in the best way possible. So yeah. Oh, I can't wait for episode 38. I can't wait for the rest of the season. We have 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. We have 7 episodes left. Wild, y'all. Wild. So, I am so curious to know your thoughts down below about Souya, and they haven't confirmed that he's deaf, but he's at least got some hearing loss for sure. I just can't believe that we got it confirmed. I had speculated it a while back and I was like, maybe not, and then you start to second guess last week with last week's episode. I'm like, well, is he deaf? He's not blind, but maybe it's not any of those things. And in this episode, they're like, no, girl, he's blind. He's deaf. So the way that his eyes are shaded and they're like that gray color, they make me keep wanting to say he's blind because you don't see like a pupil or anything, but no, that's not it. Anyway. But yeah, so I'm excited to hear your comments down below. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back real soon with episode 38 of March Comes In Like a Lion.